I'm gonna tell you a story. When I was in the military, I met a man named Fred. Fred was good guy, and Fred he got sent back home about a month into my deployment to Kandahar, Afghanistan, because he had pushed someone out of the way of incoming gunfire. Someone was being shot at, and Fred just ran. Something just took over him. He ran. He pushed that guy out of the way, and Fred took a lot of rounds. 7.62 rounds, which are basically AK-47 rounds. Pretty big rounds, man. Fred got shot 4 times. And when he got sent back to the States, I kept up with him. I kept his freaking email. And we talked. I felt a connection with that man because he was one of the first guys that introduced me to Magic the Gathering as a trading card game. And that's where I first grew my love of trading cards. I'd always liked games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And that kind of stuff, but Magic the Gathering is special. He actually introduced me to the actual game. He showed me how to actually play, all the strategies, all the colors, and everything else. And when I got back stateside, I heard that Fred was in prison because Fred decided to go and stick up at a corner store and he shot somebody. And I'm wondering, how did that happen to Fred? And I did some digging, and I found out, when I reached out to him, I sent some letters, and Fred tells me that, he went to the Department of Veterans Affairs, and they placed him on so many opioids, and I didn't kind of get what he was talking about at that time because I had not really looked into the whole opioid crisis. It wasn't really a big thing. I mean, my last deployment was like back in like 2010, 2011 era, so, I did some digging, some researching, and I found out, the pipeline involved in that. The Department of Veterans Affairs, they will prescribe these opioids, and they are too powerful. The prescription amounts and the amount of pills that you get in the time frame that you got to take them, it's just too powerful for the average person to not take them and be addicted. And so with Fred, he gotten addicted, but the VA suddenly cut him off because, it was clear that he was an addict. He was coming there like almost every other day asking for more pills. So I can't remember exactly what was the pill that he was taking at that time. But I know it was something very, very powerful, something very, very addictive. And it was some crazy stuff. And when he couldn't afford the pills, Fred would get a job, try to afford them. But the problem with a drug dealer is that the first supply is always free. After that, you got to pay, more and more to get the same supply because a drug dealer knows that pills, hard drugs, the product sells itself. You don't have to look for anyone to buy something for you. If you're selling something, like pills, people are addicts. They'll pay almost any price, if they can actually afford it. If they can find a way to get the money to you, they will. The problem is, it got so expensive, and Fred needed more and more and more to the point where he started doing crime. Fred was a hero, combat veteran, one of the best men I've ever met in my entire life. And I couldn't imagine Fred, sticking up a freaking corner store and shooting somebody. But he did. And I tell you that story to tell you, when you look at people like George Floyd, or look at his girlfriend, you look at so many people who are addicts, I'm not saying that some of the things that they do to support their habit is right. What I am saying is sometimes people end up doing horrible things, but you must look at the origin. If Fred wasn't giving those crazy pills, I just don't see him doing this. Because I don't see a man who is heroic enough to take gunfire for somebody else, hurting somebody else. And I know I'm getting a little bit, choked up and like emotional, but he was my friend. And it breaks my heart that I had even heard that story. But it freaking happened, Mo. It happened. I'm still dealing with that. I still look at some of the guys that I deployed with. A lot of them committed suicide. A lot of them end up on pills, divorced, alone, angry, bitter. but a lot of it was drug addiction. Veterans are more susceptible to drug addiction than the general population. So that's why I say all these people are like saying, "Oh, George Floyd was a drug addict." It's like, bro, please don't do that. If not for my sake, for Fred's sake. I don't think that you doing horrible things, and I'm not excusing the horrible things that Fred did. God damn, I'm not. I'm not. But I don't think you doing horrible things means that you're a completely worthless person. You could have been good at some point. And those are the memories that you want to hold on to with somebody, right? That's just a human thing to do. So I ask you, I plead with you, let's stop this. Let's stop judging addicts, man. They're people who need help. Fred needed help. And my friend, I didn't help him. All right. And I live with that. I got to live with that. He was my friend. And I'll never see him again. I'll never play Magic with him again. I don't have a lot of my friends from combat left anymore. A lot of them are dead. A lot of them are gone. That haunts me. And to think that somebody's judging addicts just like Fred. It's cruel. I beg you. I plead of you. Please. Be better. Be better. I'm sorry. It's a very emotional subject for me. I lost a lot of friends that way. Some people just OD'd. Some people overdosed. I have a brother who's a crack addict. His name's Quincy. He tells people all the time. He doesn't mind me telling people this. I have two brothers. One's an older brother, Carlos, who is, I don't like him at all for reasons that I mentioned in other videos. My other brother, Quincy, he's a saint. And Quincy, he ended up on crack cocaine. I'm not ashamed to tell you. I have a family member, a sibling, who's on crack cocaine. My brother Quincy. What happened to him was that he was abused as a child, the same way that I was by our mother. And his father was very abusive. He used to beat my mother in front of him. We have different fathers, and there was actually one situation in which his father was actually an addict on crack too. Actually, believe it or not, his name was Bud. Bud. His name was Carl Grant. Carl Grant, but they called him Bud. Bud used to hit my mama, and so my father, his name was Jimmy. He was a martial artist, and so my father met my mother after Bud, and so there was a situation in which Bud showed up and wanted to, try to take my mom out on like a date, and she tried to tell him, "Hey, I'm dating this guy named Jimmy, which is my dad." And so Jimmy shows up. He gets to a fight with Bud and beats the living shit out of him. I mean, apparently I wasn't even born then, but apparently, according to my family members, he beat the bejesus out of him. I mean, karate. I mean, he was karate. He was a master. He's a black belt, so he was really good. Also, another combat veteran. But back to the main point though. Quincy ended up being on cocaine shortly after his grandmother decided to pull the plug on his father on his birthday. So their father had gotten HIV and AIDS because he had having sex with all kind of women, and so he ended up on a ventilator. So his grandmother, Alice Grant, and she's dead now, and I hope she burns in fucking hell. She decides to pull the plug on just even though Bud was pretty much already dead. I mean, he's brain dead. They're just keeping him alive on a freaking ventilator. They officially pulled the plug on my brother's birthday to do it intentionally because Quincy wouldn't visit Bud. And so Alice Grant said, you may not visit him, but you won't forget him. And that's what she allegedly said. That's what one of my cousins said that she heard her say. And so ever since then, Quincy went into a depression spree. He was a guy who was clean cut, man. I mean, I'm talking about he had the best clothes, the best cars. He had great jobs. I mean, he made good money. He was in college. He went to Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina, man, and he had straight A's. Quincy could walk into a calculus class and get a straight 100 because he was just that good in math, genius level. All of us are smart. Like, the oldest one, he has a freaking doctorate. Quincy, he has a 4-year degree. He's a genius in like mathematics. And me, I'm a world-known journalist, YouTuber. I got 4-year degree too. We all are kind of talented, smart. And Quincy was no freaking exception. Just when that happened, he went into a fit of depression and he started doing drugs to kind of cope. Imagine if someone pulled the plug on your father on your birthday. What would that do to you? What would that do to you? So please, stop judging addicts, man. Let's be better. DA out.